Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm glad that you're watching. In today's video I'm going to share with you different ways to increase the chances of your visa being improved, especially if you are self-employed. Applying for a visa is a very daunting process, irrespective of whether you have a job or not, but more so especially if you come from a third world country or a developing country or an a-hole country like Kenya, or in Africa, or any other part of the world for that matter that requires a visa. But it gets much harder when you don't have a job. So you have to, like when you have a job, it's quite easy because you can submit your pay slips, you can submit your employer cover letter, you can show that you have regular income through your salary. But it gets a little tricky when you are self-employed, and that's what we are going to talk about today. So obviously the number one thing you want to prove to the visa officer is that as much as you are self-employed, you are able to take care of yourself both in your country and in your destination country. So that's why it's important to show the visa officer that you have sufficient funds and also you have sufficient economic ties to your home country. So number one way of showing your economic ties is by giving sufficient evidence of your financial situation. So here we are talking about the last 3 months of your personal bank statement, and it doesn't matter whether you are employed or you are not. Most embassies will need, and it doesn't matter even if you're sponsored, they will need your personal bank statement. So that's like a standard requirement whether you're employed or not. And then you could also take advantage of your latest international credit card statements if you have one. Again, this is no substitute for your personal bank statement, but it just adds up. You could give traveler's checks if you have one. You can also attach bank receipts issued for purchase of foreign currencies. So let's say if you have converted 100,000 Kenya shillings to 1,000 US dollars, you can submit your receipts for these foreign exchange transactions. You can also submit your PayPal business or personal statement. So some embassies will accept this, especially if that's where your business income is channeled to. And then you have to submit your KRA tax return slip. It will help you especially in showing that your business is actually active and it's still operational. And then again, a business registration certificate comes very handy. I have mentioned this in previous videos. I'm not certain about other countries, but I know in Kenya, through the e-citizen platforms, it takes like 3 minutes to apply for a business sole proprietorship certificate, and it costs 100 shillings, and in about 2 weeks you get your statement from the, your registration certificate from the Attorney General. And I want to believe that the situation is almost similar in most other countries. So when it comes to applying for a visa for whatever country when you're self-employed, again, as I have mentioned, you make sure that every financial declaration that you state is supported by documented evidence, as I have mentioned up above. So make sure that your financial documents are verifiable through independent means. That means, for example, I can't claim that my business income is 100,000, or if I need to claim that, I need to support it by KRA tax returns of 100,000, for example, or Etsy statement that shows that I had sales of 100,000, or an Airbnb transaction account that shows that I actually hosted guests and I earned 100,000 in that month. Failure to do so, it just limits your chances of your visa being approved. And number two way, apart from showing the financial proof of any financial declarations, is showing that you have a consistent source of income. So This is obviously why like a 6-month or a 3-month bank statement is usually a requirement for most embassies. Some will ask for 6 months, some will ask for 3 months. I personally always submit 6 months. They will never accuse you for giving more, but they might accuse you for giving less. And when you travel, when you travel abroad, you are responsible for your personal well-being, especially economic and financial, and you have to prove that you can support yourself during your time there. And if you're applying for a non-immigrant visa, it is expected that you're coming back to your country. So obviously, again, you have to prove that you can take care of yourself when you come back. So again, as I've mentioned, if you claim, let's say, to be selling Maasai artifacts or Kyoto baskets, you can back up that claim with a 3-month business PayPal account, you know, to show that actually have been receiving money every month. Or if you're getting money through M-Pesa, you give 3 months of your M-Pesa statement. If people are paying you through your bank account, again, you need to give that information. If you're a freelance writer, for example, a graphic designer, business plan writer, whatever it is that you do, and you're working through online platforms like Fiverr or Upwork, for instance, you can download your earnings statement for the last 3 months and attach that as well, and make sure to back it up with, so let's say if I withdraw my Upwork earnings through PayPal or through M-Pesa, I need to attach my earnings statement from Upwork and back it up with my withdrawal statements and the account through which I withdraw that money, so that all the 3 documents must tie up together to make my case very strong. Number 3 way to increase your chances, especially as a self-employed visa applicant, excuse me, is to open and maintain a regular bank account. And this is both for business and for your personal account. So if you're currently a freelancer or, I don't know, you self-employed in whatever sector you are, and you intend to travel abroad and you do not have a bank account yet, you better get one like yesterday. And it doesn't matter how limited your business income is. What is important is that the bank statement simply shows the visa officer that you organized and you know what you're doing. So all embassies, as I've mentioned before, will ask you for a 3-month or a 6-month bank statement. So if you don't have a bank account, I would suggest that you just hold on your visa application for a bit, open your bank account, maintain it, regularize it, and show that you actually know what you're doing. It just increases your chances. So the earlier you start showing that you have cash inflows, the stronger the case for your application. So again, as I mentioned, make sure you open and maintain a regular bank account, both a personal one and for your business account. And I know, I'm not sure about other countries, but I know in Kenya, for example, Cooperative Bank has a very cost-effective bank account, the Biashara account, that you can keep your money and they only charge you per transaction. So I think that's really affordable from a business standpoint, especially if you're still a freelancer, and it's something that you can go for. There are so many other accounts that enable you to open, so many banks that enable you to open a personal account, and the fees are really minimal, like maybe $1. Some don't even charge for maintenance, so make sure you actually focus on those kind of accounts. Number 4 way is that you make sure that you have sufficient funds to cover your travel and living expenses in your destination country. So obviously with this tip comes one of the most commonly asked questions, like how much money should I have in my bank account to show the visa officer? To be honest, I have never seen any embassy that says you must have so much money. But personally, I usually work with a ballpark figure of equivalent of $150 for every single day that I intend to visit that country. So you can use a figure that works for you. If you think $150 is decent enough, you can use it. But personally, that's what I use, and I always back it up with booked accommodation, and I book my air tickets in advance. So you can do what you think works for you, and just look at your personal situation. And then the number 5 way of also increasing the chances of your visa being approved, especially if you're self-employed, is you have to apply for the right type of visa and at the right embassy. So this may sound obvious, but there are people who still apply for the wrong type of visa and at the not right embassy, quote unquote. So you need to figure out beforehand what kind of visa to apply for that suits your particular situation, and also which embassy has the highest chance of success for your application. So for example, this is more important, and it applies especially if you're applying for a Schengen visa. So the advantage with the Schengen visa is that you can get visa, let's say through Finnish embassy or Swiss embassy or French embassy or whichever embassy, but it allows you to enter all the 27 Schengen territory countries plus 14 other countries. Again, I'm going to leave a link at the bottom of countries that you can visit with a Schengen visa. So in my experience, for example, applying for my visa, my Schengen visa through the French embassy has always been the most practical for me, not only because I actually get to speak to a visa officer and explain my situation, and also they've always been quote unquote more generous with my visa application. So right now, for instance, I have a 2-year multiple entry Schengen visa. So it means I don't have to keep going back to the embassy every time I want to travel to Europe. So it's really up to you to decide which embassy you think works for you. And also, even just in terms of travel costs, I have found it's significantly cheaper to arrive Europe through Paris. It's usually cheaper ticket-wise for me. Maybe it's because of the times that I travel. So it makes sense for me to apply for my visa through the through my Schengen visa through the French embassy. So make sure, depending on your situation, what embassy do you apply at? So for example, there are usually 2 main factors to consider when applying for your Schengen visa. So either the country you're going to spend the most amount of time at, so of the 27 Schengen territory countries, where are you going to spend the most amount of time on your trip? And number 2, which is your first port of entry? So depending on, so maybe my first point of entry is Paris, but I'm going to spend like most of my time in Finland. So again, this is still a valid reason to apply for my Schengen visa through the French embassy, because France will be my first port of entry, as much as I'm going to spend more time in Finland. And again, I have shot a video that I'm going to leave a link to as well. In your cover letter, it's important to include where you're going to be visiting and what country is going to be your port of entry and why you're applying for your visa through that country. So that's something to consider. Like, so where do you apply for your visa, at which embassy, and which kind of visa do you apply for? So again, that's really important. Now, I know some people might be wondering how they could apply for Schengen visa from the French embassy, and then they're going to another Schengen territory country. I've just explained above. So you can justify your case with, this is going to be my first port of entry. I'm going to be entering through Paris. So make sure you have a ticket or itinerary that shows you're entering through Paris. Or I'm going to be entering through Finland, or through Italy, but I'm spending more time in France. Again, make sure that your itinerary clearly spells that out, and also your air ticket shows that, your hotel bookings shows that. And something else that I almost forgot is your travel insurance. So let's say you're asking for a 1-year multiple entry visa. Make sure that you have an equivalent length of travel insurance cover. So for example, you can have insurance cover for 10 days, and ask for a visa for 1 year. Like, it has too much. So another way to increase chances of your visa being approved as a self-employed person is to be consistent. So consistency can be achieved in multiple ways, but the most important way is by synchronizing your documents. So make sure that all documents that you give are matched. So for example, if you say, I'm going to be in France for 10 days, make sure that the difference between your arrival date in France and departure is 10 days. Make sure you have hotel bookings for 10 days. Make sure that your travel insurance is not less than 10 days. It's at least 10 days and up to the length of time you're applying for a visa. So do not attempt to lie or try to hide anything. The thing is, your application isn't the first one that your visa officer is going to be seeing. Believe me, they know like every single lie in the book. They have dealt with thousands and thousands of applications. They have seen all kind of lies under the sun. So even the tiniest one in your application could cost you. So besides the time and effort needed to clarify and make your documents consistent, I think is not worth the effort. So just make sure that everything matches. You try to be as honest as possible, and it just increases your chances of getting your visa approved. Just be open. If there's an issue with your document or your application, that's the beauty of your cover letter. Explain yourself there. Or if you get a chance, like if it's to the US Embassy, for example, where you speak to an actual visa officer, explain your situation. Those guys are human beings and they're very understanding. So if you get a chance, just explain your situation instead of lying or being dishonest, and just be consistent. And then something else you want to make sure is accuracy and completeness. So in addition to being consistent, make sure that you supply accurate documents and that they are complete. So most embassies, like for example the UK embassy or even the South African embassy, they actually have like a form which you tick in the documents that they request for. So it's very clear, we want A, B, C, D. And like the French embassy, they even have a particular order in which you order your documents. So make sure that if they ask for travel insurance, make sure you have that. If they ask for pay slips, make sure you have that. If they ask for business registration documents, make sure you have all those in order, and make sure that everything is complete. And only substitute when you do not have a particular document or when the embassy gives you alternatives or has expressly stated that you can do so. So for example, when you're applying for a Schengen visa, it doesn't matter whether your trip is sponsored or not, you must submit a personal bank statement, and a business statement doesn't substitute it. And it doesn't matter that you're self-employed or you run a business statement is no substitute for your personal bank statement. So make sure that you have one. And you know, the details exist for a reason. They serve to paint to the visa officer your particular situation, and it makes sure that you give as complete a picture as possible by submitting all the required documents. And make sure that your documents build a case for you, and they're accurate, they're consistent, and they're complete. All documents and information that a visa or an embassy asks for is there for a reason. They are not just asking for these things to make your life difficult. So just do yourself a favor, make sure that your documents are complete, and increase the chances of getting your visa approved. Number 5 thing you want to look at is to be honest. I think I've already touched on that as well. Everyone has a past, and we totally get it. The visa officers get it. Everyone gets it. But the last thing you want to happen to you is that you be called out during your visa application process that, hey, excuse me, you said this while it doesn't apply to you, or you didn't say this while it applies to you. So for example, it doesn't matter that it's your financial situation or whatever. So I know, for example, almost all embassies will ask you if you've ever been denied a visa before. Do not even attempt to lie. Like, these guys share information, and I know, like, the UK embassy, for example, is very particular, and I have seen people who've been denied visas because they did not declare that they've been denied visas by other embassies. So if you've been denied a visa by another embassy, just admit it, and most of the visa application forms will ask you to explain what happened. If you've been deported, don't lie. Most visa applications will ask you, have you been deported before? Say yes, and there's an option to explain what happened. So just be honest, and if, let's say, it's the US embassy, you'll be fortunate to speak to an actual visa officer and just explain your case, explain what happened. And these guys are human, they will listen to you, and if they feel convinced that you're actually going to come back and you're being honest, they will give you your visa. Something else you need to take into consideration is your social media profile. Thanks to the internet, the level to which we deeply interact with it and how much time we spend on it, our social media profiles can act like valid points of assessment. And I know, for example, sometime in July, the US Embassy, for example, in Kenya, expressly asks for your social media handles when you make your application. So what does that mean for you? It can work either way and depends on what you've been putting on your social media profile. There are even instances where your visa could be denied based on the information that is on your social media handle. So it's important. My advice for you is that you use your social media responsibly, and it could actually work in your favor. So for example, in my case, all my social media profiles are public. So whether it's Facebook, my Facebook page, Ivamtali, facebook.com/Ivamtali, whether it's this YouTube you're on, youtube.com/Ivamtali, whether it's Pinterest, pinterest.com/Ivamtali, whether it's Instagram, instagram.com/Ivamtali, they're all public for anyone. Like, if you just went and logged in right now, you're going to find everything about me. And I have purposed to make it public for a reason, because I have nothing to hide. And secondly, being a travel blogger, it helps to build a case for me when I'm making my visa applications. Like, if a visa officer logged into my Instagram profile, they can actually see that I just got back from Bahrain or from Djibouti or France, London, UK, whatever. So make sure that you're using your social media responsibly and for your own advantage, whether it's going to be for future job applications, whether it's going to be for your visa application, it doesn't matter, because it's supposed to work in your favor. Just make sure that whatever you post on there is something that will work in your favor, and don't just think about today. Ask yourself, whatever I'm posting on this account today, what will be the impact 20 years from today? So for me, that's what I always do before I post something. I ask myself, 5 years, 10 years down the line, what will this do to me, or do against me, or do for me? And for example, if you looked at my Twitter account, for example, it clearly states that I'm the chief everything officer at Ivamtali. And so in the event that I ever want to request for a multiple entry visa for any country, I could use my social media profile and present my case. So yeah, there's that. And then last but not least, as a self-employed person, you need to like really plan. And it's not just for self-employed people looking for visas, but just anyone. You just need to really plan, like both before you apply for your visa and even after you get your visa. Like, one thing that people always ask me, like, how do you afford to travel? Like, to be honest, I must say that I'm just blessed. But apart from that, like, I capitalize, like 90% of it is because of planning. So for example, if I find my way in Europe, for instance, today, if I found myself in London, for example, there's no way I'm going to London, flying 8 hours and back to Nairobi to stay in London for like 2 days. No, I always combine any trip that I find myself on with maybe 2 or 3 other countries, depending on how much time I have on my hands. So if, let's say, I go to, I don't know, I have my Schengen visa and I decide to go to Paris, for instance, there's so many other countries that I can visit using the Schengen visa, and most of those are like even not in the Schengen territory. So I take advantage of my presence in France, for example, and go to visit Georgia. That will grant me free access, courtesy of the French visa, for instance. So instead of just going to Paris for like 3 days, I could add it with 2 days in Georgia and maybe 3 additional days in Rome, you know. So just plan around, and it not only makes it cheaper for you, you know, when you're self-employed, it's not easy coming up with all this money. And there are days, you know, we have the feast and famine days where today you have gigs, tomorrow you don't have, and you just have to really strike a balance between when the days are working for you and when it's not working for you. So just plan your life, plan your travels well, and it helps you even in building your itinerary. And the more practical your itinerary looks like, the more real your case looks like for the visa officer. So make sure that that works out well for you and that your itinerary is very clear when you submit to the visa officer. So again, I'm just gonna take a rundown of how to increase the chances of your visa being approved when you're self-employed. So number 1 is make sure that you have show evidence that you have a consistent source of income. That's number 1. Make sure that is really critical. You have evidence of consistent source of income. Number 2, open and maintain a regular bank account. That's both a personal one and a business account. Number 3, you have sufficient funds to cover your travel and living expenses in the destination country, as well as enough money to maintain you when you come back home. Number 4, make sure you apply for the right type of visa and quote unquote the right embassy. Number 5, be consistent. Number 6, be accurate and complete in your submission documents. Number 7, be honest. Number 8, your social media profile, make it work for you. Be responsible in your posts. And number 9, make sure that you plan. It not only saves you money, but it also helps you when you're building your itinerary for the visa application. So that's it for today. Thank you for staying up to the end. And again, as I always say, remember, the granting of your visa is solely at the discretion of the visa officer that will handle your case. And this is not a guarantee that you will get it. However, it increases the chances of you getting your visa approved as a self-employed person. So let me know what you think. Did I leave out anything? If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please remember to hit the subscription button so that every time I shoot a video, you make sure you know. Remember to hit the notification bell so that you'll always be notified when I shoot new videos. And let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below. Let's continue the conversations, and thank you for staying to the end. See you in the next video. Bye bye.